Good evening. I'm John Beam, the Executive Director of the Genzibar Foundation, and I'd like to interrupt our program for a public service announcement. Focus for a minute on the middle of the MCN, campus. Among the participants in this year's MCC are faculty and administrators from 15 institutions of higher education who are interested in and wanted to engage with the work that you all are doing. In fact, Brandeis University, Babson University, Bentley University, and Lynn University have made a financial commitment to become Millennium campuses. So the message is, echoing something that Jeff Sachs shared with us last year, engage with your institution, engage with your faculty, engage with your staff, your administrators. They are powerful allies in your work. They can help, and many of them want to help. And I would submit partnership with your institution is necessary if we want to build this movement. And now back to your regularly scheduled programming. The mission of the Genzibar Foundation is to recognize and support student-led, service-based groups, projects, and activities on college campuses. And with the sincerest respect to the amazing people who have graced this stage this evening, it is my honor to present what I think is the most significant award of the evening, because it's going to a student leader, one of you. It's been inspiring for us to build a partnership over the past 5 years with the Millennium Campus Network, even more so this year with the opportunity to observe and participate with the inaugural class of Millennium Fellows. And while all of those fellows are extraordinary individuals and pursuing extraordinary projects, there is one that we'd like to single out this evening for her work. Medika is an organization that fosters entrepreneurship among young people in regions that are sorely lacking in resources to be able to start and maintain a business. And they're doing it with a really cool solar-powered phone charging device. And so I would like to recognize with a 2014 Global Generation Award the founder and CEO of Medika, Netia McCray.
You have to give me a second. Especially because I'm using new technology, so bear with me for a second. But I cannot express to you how special this moment is to me. Back in 2011, I was just an MIT undergraduate sitting at Harvard University, kind of trying to convince myself that what I was trying to do didn't matter. And I was at Harvard University at the Millennium Campus Conference there. And Sam doesn't know this story, but I was the student who was inspired that day that what I was doing did matter. And so it's truly an honor to receive the Global Generation Award from the Millennium Campus Network 3 years later. And I kind of feel like I haven't done enough to deserve it yet, considering that I'm standing before you after a whole array of internationally recognized leaders and social change makers who have not only inspired my own work, but I'm sure have inspired yours as well. Nevertheless, the theme of this year's award ceremony is the UN's International Day of the Girl. So I'll keep information about me and what I do to a minimum. I'm pretty sure you can find me on Twitter or on my website. But all I'm gonna say, oh, you had already put it up for me, that's awesome, is if you wanna follow me, this is my contact information. And as you can tell, I am a proud alumna of MIT. But today is not about me, and it's not about what we do at Benjika. It is the UN's International Day of the Girl, and today I want to highlight a theme that personally resonates with me. As a young woman and a global citizen, it is not a courtesy call for me to recognize the young men and women who work tirelessly in order to make opportunities like this one possible for women like me. And it's not just a courtesy call, it's a responsibility that I owe to those individuals who have stood up for my right to be here today. I know I'm gonna date myself, but I was a kid of the 1990s, and the theme of the 1990s was representation matters. And if you were an African American girl, the 1990s were a magical time to grow up, because this was a time period in which magazine covers all around the country and the world began to show the most powerful and beautiful women of the world. When I was 7 years old, I was a nerd. A lot of people say you can find a nerd when they're 3 years old, and my parents found one. But my mom also knew the importance of me seeing people who looked like me. She cut out this picture from the 1992 Vogue issue. And I don't like fashion, so for me to know this year and this issue, trust me, it is important. This picture captures Naomi Campbell and Tyra Banks and Beverly Peele just having fun on a yacht. But for me, it was my first image of 3 young Black women who were proud, who were graceful, who had the pose and the power to transform the lives of millions of girls around the world and made us believe that our Black is beautiful. In my school days, I can remember how me and my sister would pose with my mom flashing the camera, and we would try to capture Tyra's poses or Naomi's walk. And I didn't do these things because I wanted to be a supermodel. I mean, look where I ended up at. But I did them because I wanted to emulate the grace and pose and power these women captured in their images. With a single image, they had captured me to realize that my dreams didn't lie at my front doorstep, that I can conquer the world if I saw fit. And as a nerd girl growing up, and I probably call myself a blurred, which is Black nerd, I have always been interested in exploring the world around me. So naturally, I looked for a role model who, like me, was successful in conquering the world and becoming a master of the universe, or what we now call scientists and engineers. And so to try to understand this was a little before the age of Google. And so back then you had to, I know, brace yourselves, go to the library to find these people. And I remember the only image I could find was of young girls who said, I dreamed to be something. And so this image is of me at the Miami-Dade Metro Zoo. I am a Floridian. And this was this was the only place I could actually explore that side. But in the meantime, in this photo, I was still searching for my role model. And I found her, Dr. Mae Jemison, the first African-American woman into space. But once I found her, I quickly became disappointed, not in her story, but the fact that it took me years to find another. And these stories are too few and far in between. But it was not until one faithful day when I was 12 years old, I walked into my school library and we came across a new book. And this new book gave me my permanent role model in life, Queen Nzinga Mbanji. Oh, I snuck this slide in here. So for a brief moment after I found out about Dr. Mae Jemison, I wanted to be a doctor too because she was a physician. So a very ill-fated 1998 Halloween, I decided I wanted to portray my dream of becoming a doctor, my dream of all of 6 weeks. And this is the faithful image of my makeup job that I tried to do to look like Dr. Mae Jemison. But this was my permanent role model that I discovered when I was 12 years old. Many of you may or not even have heard her name, but Queen Nzinga was a 17th century African ruler who defied the Portuguese who were colonizing the area of Angola at the time. What we call modern-day Angola used to be two kingdoms, the kingdom of Ndongo and Matamba. Nzinga used to be a 15-year-old girl without a care in the world until the Portuguese came in and tried to take over the port city of what we now know as Luanda. At 15 years old, the Portuguese governor demanded to have an audience with her and her brother, the current king of Angola. Now, for a girl in the 16th century and at 15 years old, to be called by the Portuguese governor is a really big call indeed. And while I was reading this book, I realized that the same challenge that she faced as 15 about being insecure and fearful of what the world thought of her were the same challenges I was facing, even though I was slightly younger. But there was one scene in particular in this book that captured my imagination and made me fall in love with her. This is the only illustrated scene of Queen Nzinga during her reign. This is her at 15 years old creating a peace treaty with the Portuguese governor. The fascinating thing about this photo is that the Portuguese governor saw her nothing more than a colored, nothing to be considered with respect, just another pawn in his game. So he had laid down a floor mat for her for their meeting and had intended for her to sit on the floor. In every culture, sitting on the floor while someone else sits in the chair is a sign of disrespect. But at 15, and this was the part that got me at 12, she cunningly knew what he was trying to play and asked one of his servants to come over and create a human bench for her to sit on so she could remain at eye level with the Portuguese governor. At 15, that took guts. And that proved to the Portuguese and the European colonizers that she was no one to mess around with. And until her death at the age of 81, she caused nothing but strife for the Portuguese and other colonizers in West Africa. She made sure that runaway slaves had a safe haven in her kingdom. She made sure she was going to modernize her kingdom. She brought in the world's greatest scientists, mathematicians, and engineers to modernize her society, to the point when she died at 81, many of the Europeans, including the Dutch, had to remark that her kingdom was on par with most European cities and countries. And this is why I want to emphasize this to you today. Representation matters. I remember staying up until 4 a.m. rereading this book and rereading her story. I remember the next day I woke up feeling empowered like I was a new woman. My mom could even tell the difference because she saw me making poses with an imaginary bow and arrow. Anytime she would say something, and I would just give her the look as if I was like some queen not to mess with, and pull out my imaginary bow and arrow as if I was going to strike. She saw the change in her daughter, and she never stood in the way. Everyone in this room, no matter your socioeconomic background, racial, or ethnic identity, has a passion to change the world. And if you don't, I'm sorry you've made it this far in the celebration, but you're in the wrong room. When we aspire to make the world a better place, we must realize that it's not only our actions which make an impact on the world, it is us. We can change the face of global poverty. However, we cannot change the face of global poverty if we don't change the faces leading the charge against global poverty. I hope this final story, I know it's a little long, will help drive home this message. Like Queen Nzinga and Malala, I was highly fortunate that my parents, especially my father, did not clip my wings. Growing up, I did not know that my father's childhood dream was to attend MIT. He never mentioned it while I was growing up, and until I was 17, I had never heard of the place except in history books about World War II. Fast forward to 4 years ago, and I've completed my second year at MIT, and my father was battling a terminal cancer diagnosis. I remember a moment when I had to come home, and I was excitedly updating my father on all my misadventures on MIT's campus. And he said the following: "Nisha, I'm not going to see you graduate, but I want you to know that you are my hero." He told me about his childhood in Southside Chicago, and despite his immaculate grades, that his instructors thought he could be nothing more than a garbage collector, and that his dream to attend MIT was a fool's run. He told me that in his final hours, he had found his faith in Christianity again, because he believed the Lord had blessed him with the opportunity to live his dream through me with no prompting on his own. And he saw that through a child like me, let alone his own flesh and blood, that he could have attended MIT if he didn't let the world stop him. At MIT, we have a tradition in which, upon the completion of our second year, we receive a ring called a brass rat, which I'm proudly wearing today. My father idolized this ring, and he made it his last wish on earth to actually hold one. He would watch Iron Man over and over again for this iconic scene in which Robert Downey Jr. would place his brass rat on the bar while casually hitting on an attractive lady. And a week before his passing, I had received my inaugural brass rat and immediately flew home to be with him during his final days. And on his deathbed, I was able to fulfill his final wish, and he got to see the McCray name on an MIT brass rat. You may ask that these are a lot of stories that may make you cry or may make you inspirational or may make you think, wow, I have a really weird life. However, there's a purpose why I decided to share those stories with you, because I feel these are representative of what representation means to me and what it means to many of your peers in this audience. Because representation matters. As individuals, we are representatives of an idea. The purpose of our lives is to define what idea we choose to select. When you go out into the world, whether here or abroad, you represent an idea. Queen Nzinga represented to me that I should not let the confines of society determine what I can do with my life. My parents, including my father, represented the idea to me that I could be whoever I wanted to be. To my father, I represented the idea that a girl, a black girl, even his own flesh and blood, could achieve anything she set her mind to. To a girl in Brazil who we brought the first Banjica program to, Banjica and I represent the idea that a girl can be an engineer, a girl can be a scientist, and a girl can really rock the foundations of this earth. To a girl in Boston, Banjica and I represent the idea that a girl, and not just any girl, a girl who looks exactly like her, can do whatever she wants. And what I'm here today, and the reason I'm going on and on, it may seem, is that I feel if anything you leave out of here tonight is the need to incorporate all of these stories in this room and to the story of international development. I want the story that you portray today and in the future to be the story on how the world's youth accomplish not only the Millennium Development Goals, but accomplish them by 2030. Let's show the adults who set the standards for 2015 that we can do what they wanted to do in 15 years. And I want the youth in this room and around the world to tackle global poverty and make it history. And all because I feel these stories need to be shared because representation matters. At this moment, I don't know if we can turn the lights on. Oh, that power. At this moment, I want everyone to take your smartphones out. If we can lighten it up a little bit more. Ladies, I want you to take your smartphones out, and in 50 characters or less, I want you to describe to a girl, to a young lady, or to an established professional out in the Twitterverse or in Instagram, tell them why you matter and what you represent, using the hashtags, the day of the girl, and this is my era. To my fellas in the audience, I want you to do the same thing, but not talk about yourself, because you have all of the calendar year to talk about Today, I want you to highlight a woman, a girl, no matter if you know them personally or if they served as a role model. I want you to write in 50 characters or less their name and why you support them. And use the hashtag he for she and this is my era. And while you are all trying to perfect the perfect hashtag, I'll leave you with this. Representation matters, which is just a fancy way of saying that you matter. My last 10 seconds, I promise. My mom's watching, and I would like to dedicate this award to my parents, Brenda and Marvin McCray, for always supporting my dreams and my hopes during good times and bad. Sorry.
So, I don't know how to follow that up. Look, that was incredible.